Hey, welcome to Rust Revival Garage. My name is Tim. I'm actually doing something over again because I didn't do it right the first time. I replaced the intake gaskets for my Blueprint engine in my 85 C10, and of course I found out I'm leaking oil. So I did not do the China wall properly. But while I was in there, I thought this is a good time for me to hook up my oil pressure gauge that I've got in the cab, right? Because I've got everything out of the way. And I also thought this is also a good chance to maybe show you guys what it looks like in case you need to replace your oil sending switch, your oil sending unit. You can kind of get a better look at it because it's in the very back of the engine, distributors in the way, all that kind of stuff. So let's get to it. All right, so here it is in the back of the engine. This is the oil sending unit. This sends to your gauge. This is the oil pressure switch. So if you do need to get into the back to swap out either of these, and you've got the T like I do, I kind of wanted to show you a little easier because it's like I said, it's all cleared out. You've got room and I can sort of show you. So the two things you're going to need to do this is the 9/16 wrench and a 1 1/16 socket, and you will probably never use this ever again. But this is one that's specifically made for the oil pressure switch, and it just has it's short, and it allows you to be able to fit it onto the switch, and then you can loosen it up and then put the new one on. Now, why do you need the 9/16 wrench? Basically what you want to do is put it on here so that you are holding this still, and then that way when you're turning this, you're not putting too much pressure on the T, because this can snap off. You don't want it to break down here into your block. You don't want it to break and come off the entire thing, and so that 9/16 gives you some support. But let's see if we can go ahead and get that switch off, and you can see it's just long enough, but not so long that it comes back here and you're in the way of the firewall. Of course, I am stretched so far out across this darn thing. Let me get a better angle. Can't really get to it at a better angle, so I used an extension on my socket to give me leverage. And that's what it looks like. So you might be doing this blind. There is one video on the YouTubes that shows a guy doing it, but he can't show you anything. So I wanted to give him a shout out for this, and that's how you get it off. This way at least you can see sort of what's going on. Same thing if you're dealing with this, you put the 9/16 on here if you're replacing the sending unit, and then you can turn it, hopefully either in here. You may have to turn it from back there, but at least that way you can get to it a little easier. Okay, so here's the line that I'm going to use. Rather than the traditional plastic tubing that comes with the oil pressure gauge, I like to use this. I used it in this car and no leaks at all. It's been great. And I'll have a link down in the description to this if you want to order it. It does come with an adapter kit. Hopefully one of these will fit. Looking at it now, I'm not sure. Now the kit did come with this tape, but I do not recommend this. I don't know what this is, but I've heard it's really important to use the yellow kind. There's a name for it, I don't know what it is, but it's the kind that basically can stand up to fuel and oil and other things, other chemicals. So this is the kind that I want to use. Now this normally went in with, you know, nothing on it. I think there might have been some version of a white tape on there, but what I want to do is go with the yellow tape. But you do not want to do it on the fittings between, say I use this adapter and then I adapt it into here. I don't want to put the tape onto that one. I only want to put the tape on the one that goes into the oil pressure opening. So testing it out, this one seems to fit. There we go. So this is the one I would put the yellow tape on, not this side. This is going to go into that new hose. So what I will do is get this one all the way in. I'll put the tape on it, but I'll get this one all the way in, and then I'll attach the hose to the other side. Then, trying to think where I can run it into the cab. Okay, so my temperature gauge connects into the intake here, runs back here. What I'll do is it feeds in here. I'll slide it in there and run it over to the oil gauge. So I'm going to go ahead and get this side started, tighten this down, put the tape on this end, and then I can put that in. It's going to be a little tricky having to deal with all the hose, but I don't want to try to lean over and try to get this all lined up and tightened up. And of course this is metric. Because it's got to be metric. Nearly impossible to do things on camera, of course, but I did have the tape fully wrapped around there. Hopefully that's not going to be bunched up too much and I can get the thread started, but we should be good. Oh yeah, this is not going to be easy. Okay, I take it all back. It is impossible to start with the hose on there. So I've got that started. Now, I'm going to follow my own advice and get the 9/16 on the T so I don't snap that off. Alright, so that's on there nice and tight. Now I just need to attach the hose. Yeah, like an idiot, this one actually has one that can spin on. If I can get it lined up. Yeah, look how much easier that was. Do not listen to me. I am how not to do things right. Now I just need to get something on here, here. Well, actually, I think if I can hold it still here, that'll protect the T. Then I will tighten that up. It is so hard to stretch across a C10 hood. Alright, that's connected. It's a good thing I got long arms. I don't care what you put across it. This stuff hurts to lean on. Oh my God. Spend all my time and effort on my Pontiac, Le Mans, and again, maintenance. The Jeep has let me down. Look at that brake fluid just leaking out of there. Always something. From what I can tell, the brake bleeder is where it's coming from. The line itself seems like it's fine, but it's rolling down and then dripping off of the line. So, yay. Alright, let's see if we can route this under all this stuff. Alright. And feed it into the truck. And I need to put some serious rubber on that thing to keep it protected. All right, got a little grommet I've cut, and I'm going to put it around that hose and keep it protected from the firewall. So there we are, got my grommet on there, we're good to go. Problem. That's as far as she goes. And it's got to get all the way over there. It is never easy, is it? Never easy. The 6-footer would have helped, but I'm gonna see if I can route it a different way. All right, got some electrical wiring running through here. Gonna put it back there. And looky here, we've got all the room. I'm just gonna have to hide a good chunk of the hose, but I can hook it right up to my oil pressure gauge. All right, now I just need to hope one of my adapters will fit to the back of the gauge, because I've already got the lighting hooked up to it. I've got a couple of videos on hooking up the voltmeter and the water gauge. I can put those links in the description down below, because I also talk about doing the wiring for the lighting. So at least you can see how to hook up your wiring for the lights. But in my case, I'm just going to have to hook this up to the back of the gauge. Okay, so I'm going to tell on myself a little bit. Managed to get the engine put back together, the intake manifold back on, and of course I decided to start it up. And I did not have my oil pressure gauge hooked up. So you know what that means. I got oil all throughout the truck, and it ran and leaked all the way out. Oh my God. So yeah, like I said, I could have just completely skipped this whole part, but I show you everything on this channel. One thing I did want to point out, the reason why I did not have my gauge hooked back up is the gauge itself. Let me show it to you. So here's my problem. I do not have anything that's going to fit this small size. This is a setup that's perfect for you to put the little adapter on it for the nylon. You can basically put the nylon tube through here, or the copper tube, and then attach it to the back of this. The problem was I didn't have anything that size that I could convert from this is basically, if you need to know, a 5/16 outer diameter thread. But I tried several different options, and I could not find anything to match this that I could then transfer to the side, which I believe is the 1/8 NPT. But yeah, I soaked everything. Hopefully I'm going to get some Dawn and use it to clean off the this carpet and the carpet that's inside the truck. But oh man, what a mess. The other problem that I had is I actually ran about 1.5 quarts out of this engine. Luckily there's still some oil showing on the bottom of the dipstick, so I don't think I did any damage. But basically it was a very dirty and messy oil change. I just did it to the cab. So what is my answer? I'm actually buying another oil pressure gauge, one that actually has a 1/8 NPT on the back of it. It's also an Equus, the same as this one. But I just got tired of, there's a couple of different places like McMaster Car and Granger. I could have ordered fittings that would have worked, but it was 7 to 10 days kind of thing, and I'm not waiting that long. $28 for a new matching oil pressure gauge, and I'm good to go. I'm just waiting for it to show up. Okay, so the new gauge was a bust. It's pretty much the same thing. Has the same exact back end on it as this gauge. So just in case you need to know, this is a 3/16 thread. Okay, so what I did after I realized that the new gauge wasn't going to work, I ran to the hardware store looking for anything, and I came up with a basically a connecting nut, a coupling nut. Same size on both ends, the 3/16. I even had the little piece with me so I could test it out. I needed something that would go from the male end on the gauge to this male end. So I used this coupling nut, put it together, and it's going to stick out like this far from the back of the gauge, but it's the only thing I can think that will work. If you've got any suggestions, please let me know in the comments down below. They had a really great selection at the hardware store of all these brass fittings for compression. They had elbows and T's, and everything that they considered to be a union was that 3/16 male to male, and it only had these little caps on the end of it. And these little caps are great because they have the little hole in the back for the tubing, but it doesn't help if you just want to connect that braided line. I need something that's that -4AN fitting that will fit this. And there's just nothing out there. There's no coupling that goes, compression coupling that goes with this. So I'm going to use a ton of tape on this to see if I can get it tight enough that this coupler will work. This is not compression, this is just a nut. And I'm hoping I can get it on there with the tape and get it tight enough that it actually works. Otherwise, I think I may have to go with a different gauge that won't look the same, and that's the problem. I don't want it to look different. We'll see. Okay, so I've got my tape on this end. I'm going to attach this nut, get it as nice and tight as I possibly can. Then put the tape again on this end, get it in there nice and tight as I can. And it will look like this, which looks terrible, but nobody will see it. It's back behind the gauge and under the dash, so who knows. I just hope it seals. All right, let's give it a try. Got my light back in there. All right, just need to tighten that one up. All right, got that up, all set up. Anyway, let's check and see if it leaks. The engine is running and I've got oil pressure. I've got a little towel down below so I can see if there's any leaks. But look at that. Now the reason why I wanted to do this gauge is, look at that, it says 60, and then this is the stock gauge. Not sure if you can see it, but it's about 40, maybe 50 something, so it's a little different. Feel anything. So yeah, I drove it around. Everything looks good. There are no leaks. So yeah, maybe if you're having trouble doing the same thing, use that locking or that sort of coupling nut and a lot of tape. Hoping that will hold. But you know, as far as I know, if there's another solution to that very, very tiny thread on the back of those gauges, let me know. I'd rather use that. But for the time being, it works, and I'm happy. So hopefully this helps you out if you wanted to install an oil pressure gauge in your C10, or if you needed to see what the access looks like to change out your oil pressure switch or the oil pressure sending unit. It's pretty hard to do back there. I know a lot of people don't want to take out the carb and the distributor, but it's certainly a lot easier when you do it, and that thing is on there tight. So yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. If you can give me a like if you got anything out of the video, I'd appreciate it. Leave me a comment down below if you have any questions or suggestions, and subscribe to the channel if you can. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.